Hello, folks, and welcome back to part two of Irish Wrestling Chronicles. And we're going to pick off from where we left off in part one here with Mandrake, better known as Garrett Kidd.
Yeah.
In wrestling these days, it's a term people go on about the WWE. They call a belt a title.
Mm-hmm.
So they say the wrestling title. They don't really call it belts anymore.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? Your view on it, belt or a title?
Belt or a title? I'd have to lean towards title. I think a title.
In what way?
As in, like, the belt is just basically the award of being the champion. It's like winning a trophy. You know, you don't go like, I'm the trophy. You go, I'm the champ, and this is my trophy to prove it. So I think if you win something, you accomplish something, you win that prestige, that title, and this is just to represent. But, you know, not taken away from these wonderful belts. They are amazing to look at as well.
See, to me, like, a title is like what it is, a title. You are the heavyweight champion.
Yeah.
That's your title.
Yeah.
As the director or wherever in your job. So your title is you're the wrestling champion.
Mm-hmm.
So you are the wrestling champion. That's your title. To me, you hold the wrestling, technically a title, the title of champion, but you're wearing a championship belt.
Yeah.
So the word belt definitely still has a place within.
Oh, absolutely.
Championship.
Yeah. I don't think it should be like, oh, you. In my opinion, I know the bigger wrestling world, or the people that pay the big checks, think, oh, you can't say a belt. I think it's an interchangeable phrase to me. I think like the general audience will understand it's the same thing.
So you have the title of being a wrestling champion, and this is your championship belt.
Yeah, makes total sense.
You replace the word belt completely with title. I don't.
No, I don't. I think both have a place for sure.
So moving on. So when we left off, Mandrake was the 2008. You became the IWW International Heavyweight Champion, and you were starting to tour around Ireland.
Yeah,
you know, we had brought up some of the names. Like Vito, PCO, Pierre Carloulet, Rene Dupree, and such other names that you wrestled. But we then started to bring in the likes of Doug Basham, who I think made a big difference to our live events.
Oh, yeah.
And particularly with yourself, because Doug was here for numerous tours. Mm-hmm. And I must have wrestled Doug maybe 25, 30 times.
Yeah.
40 times even, like, and again, singles, best of three falls and so forth. We can
absolutely. I'd love to talk about Doug. Doug was a very cool guy. Again, his reputation preceded him a lot because, you know, he's an ex-WWE guy. And like, what a in-ring worker he was. Very good technically, very smooth. Like, great at reading crowds and understanding how to tailor your match to the crowd and the person you're working with. You know, he understands that, like, to get a great match, it's your dance partner as well. It's not all about you. And that's just talking about him in the ring. But where he was really influential for me is he just helped me out a lot in terms of, like, he gave me a lot of good advice on where I was currently at and, you know, things that I could do to improve my game, like leaning up and maybe changing my look a wee bit, and, you know, pacing my entrance, making everything mean a little bit more rather than rushing through everything, you know, and that the mentality as well. What I learned a lot from is to be able to think a little bit more on the fly as well and work on the fly a little bit more, because sometimes Doug would be in there and if we had something planned, he might change it because maybe the crowd were reacting a certain way, which would give a much better crowd reaction. So he was really good that way, and he never seemed like a really like hard taskmaster. He was like a locker room leader, I felt, that got the respect of everyone because he was exceptionally good at what he did, and he had a really good way of talking to people, and he got respect rather than demanded respect.
He was a very good communicator.
Yeah.
And if you didn't understand what he was saying, regardless, I've seen him talk to guys who were ring announcers even, he would keep at it until they understood him.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, he was a real professional, but the sort of professional that you want to be around, that makes you feel at ease and gets the best out of you, I thought. And he was also great fun on the road as well. So it was.
In fairness to Doug Basham, I never felt he was trying to work me.
Yeah.
He was never trying to get anything extra, anything more, or go less in a match. He was quite impressive. Himself and Tracy Smothers are probably my two favourite international guys, marquee names who we flew in over the years.
Yeah.
For helping lads and everything they've done. Speaking of tips off of Doug, there was one day, it was prior to a DVD taping we were doing. And he said to me, can you take me to chemist, the pharmacy? I want to get some hemorrhoid cream. And I was thinking, oh, jeez, is he okay? He's going to wrestle tomorrow. So he had his cream. And I said, are you okay? Are you able to wrestle tomorrow? Like, it is a DVD taping. I can't really push it back. I'm fine. He goes, I used the hemorrhoid cream. And this is a tip that he gave for a photo shoot or anything that's been recorded. If you rub on hemorrhoid cream
to make himself more vascular,
the night before, it soaks into your skin and it tightens it. Yeah. So then you look more lean. That was actually pretty impressive. And there's me panicking. Jeez, I'm not going to be able to do the show tomorrow.
Yeah. It also helped that he probably only had like 7% body fat as well. That probably made him look really lean as well.
And for someone who was well able to drink and have the crack, the fun, he kept himself in tremendous shape.
Yeah, he was a machine in the ring. He absolutely was.
And for me back then, that was interesting, was how somebody like that wasn't under a full-time contract anywhere else. Because now we tried TNA. I'm surprised he never went back to WWE because he had a great attitude.
Yeah.
He'd do whatever.
A great look.
I'd ask anybody over. So it was always surprising that a person like that is never kept in full-time employment by a big league employer. Like, although now I believe he is the OVW trainer.
Oh, amazing!
So Al Snow took over OVW. Apparently, he's the full-time trainer down there.
Well, I think they're very lucky to have him. Like, he's a great trainer. Like, I think he's a tailor-made mentor figure for people. He's a good leader that way and a good mentor.
He always seems to have a smile, doesn't he?
Yep. And
or a joke.
A joke, yeah. Levity at the right times, but at the same time, he was the boss.
There was one time, it's actually recorded for a DVD as well, in Kilkenny. We were doing a show in a hotel down there. And the ring announcer wasn't exactly the most intelligent guy in the world. And you would have to keep telling things 6, 7, 8 times.
It wasn't me, was it? No, it's okay.
But it was you in a match with Doug. It was a best of 3 falls.
Yeah.
And you had lost whatever fall it was. But I always remember the ring announcer stood over you. And I was thinking, why would you do that? It's been recorded, and you're standing over the guy who's eventually you're trying to put over is going to win. And Doug copped it. I mean, he came over, he pushed him as hard as he could into the corner, and got on top of him. He was top,
But that's really cool. Like that's a ring general because he's seen that doesn't look good, and he went over there. But he was able to hide that, so he wasn't going to go over and go, hey, Mr. Ring Announcer guy, can you go stand over there? He kind of hid that in his heelish character.
But that's what he threw him into the corner. In character was basically saying, don't bleed and do that again.
Yeah, that was cool.
But yeah, he was up and down the road, numerous tours. And one of the particular tours he was on, we had brought in Balls Mahoney.
Yes.
Balls Mahoney came in for... I'd actually used Balls for... I did a big arena show. That was where you actually... wrestle Sean Davari on that.
Yeah.
And that was to be, we had stopped doing our TV show, Whiplash TV, on the Wrestling Channel. And I think the Wrestling Channel was not going out of business, but it was sold to Fight Network.
Yes.
At that stage.
We started MMA and things on it.
So we were showing some DVDs on Dublin City TV, which was more or less, it was like in the old, with the Americans, UHF channel back in the day. While it was broadcast to a huge audience, no one really watched it. So, that wasn't working out. So we decided Buzz TV was launching.
Yeah.
And he had all these big plans. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Digital channel through Sky. And it was Anyway, the next big thing. So we said, cool, brilliant, come along, made a deal. If we shoot a pilot, 4 weeks worth of TV, they would pay us on ad revenue. And then if it was good ad revenue, would you pay us the fee? All worked out. And we did the taping that day in the basketball arena. We had about roughly 1,000 people there.
Yeah, it was good.
And but it was too long. Dragged out for 4 hours of TV. And by the time your match came around, I think
It's like 11:30.
Yeah.
Night.
And half the crowd were gone, which were family and kids. And I just thought the camera wasn't as good. And flash forward to Bus TV, went out of business even before we got to broadcast the TV show. Absolute nightmare. But so people with all these promises in wrestling, TV stations and investors and learned the hard way of not to listen to them. But Balls Mahoney came in for that. There was Ewan Davardi, Balls Mahoney, Dave Morales. I think he's with Next UK now.
Yeah.
Chad Collier was there, Bad Bones, Raven. It was loaded card actually. So my first experience with Balls was dealing on the phone. He's some very crazy character. He was impersonal. He likes to show off in front of people. He likes an audience. Anyone who knows Balls Mahoney likes an audience. Rah, 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 rah. So my partner at the time came over to me almost crying. I said, that guy Balls is after embarrassing me and giving out to me over something. So I went over to Balls. I said, right, you're going. We don't want you. I'm sending you home. Get your bag. There's taxi money. And the whole thing with a wrestler, I find, is if you mess with their money, that's most important to them. Because I wasn't going to take Balls down with a fight, you know what I mean? So mess with his money. You apologise to my partner. And I said to myself, right, I'll get rid of him as quick as I can. You know what I mean? I won't bring him back. But Raven was to do a tour, but he took, now I hadn't paid for his plane ticket, but he took a deal to make a movie in Australia.
Wow.
So fair enough, I replaced him with Balls was there that, I'll do it. And he gave me a price and I ended up using Balls. And that's how I use him. I was 50-50 on using him. But when he came in and I got to know Balls, oh my God. He was such a lovable character.
Yeah.
Once that wall came down, he's a lovable character.
I have nothing bad to say about Balls. Everything I have to say about him is really cool. Like the moment him and I were together in the CM locker room, I think I had like a Creating Filth t-shirt, which was a band I was really in, and he had a Typo Negative t-shirt, which is a band I'm also really in, and we got talking about it, and we were like best friends in that sense, and we'd just talk about music. And like anytime we'd have to like work together, he was always super accommodating and trying to get me over. He was like, you're gonna give me your Michinoku driver, and I'm like, wait, I'm 5'10" and 200 pounds and you're 6 foot something. And he was just, and like he did the commentary thing, he did the commentary in the match between me and Doug. And he was put me over the whole time on that. So like, and he was great fun to be around as well. Like
he was, what Balls was, he was always trying to work me in the beginning. I think he came in for 2 tours in the end. He was always trying to work, put the belt on me. He always tried to get you to put the belt on them so you'd bring him back. And once I explained to him, stop doing that. And that's why he used to put you over so much. But once you realised that doesn't work, he'd do anything you wanted. Like, as regards you. Yeah. And he'd put any guys over and he'd always want to bleed. I said, no, I don't like bleeding. It's a kid's show, a family show. If it goes anywhere onto a child, and then the ring gets stained, lads are infectious control. Nobody thinks about these things in wrestling, And he'd always blame the opponents. So, and I had a couple of guys go, it wasn't me, he made me do it, or he did it himself. So did you ever have him blading in a match after I told him no?
Absolutely, 100%, yes. I remember we were in Waterford, in that big venue that the name always escapes me, and it was really busy. Yeah. And we were outside the ring, and he was like, "Hey, Mandrake, hit me off the ring post." So I sent him into the ring post, and he took the pole, and then he fed back in him, and he was like, give me a shot. And so he threw a work punch, and he's like, "No, really hit me." I was like, "Oh, okay." And then he went down, he rolled out in the ring, and he came back up, and it was just like blood everywhere. I was like, "Oh, gross." Yeah.
I would give it. Why did you? It wasn't me, man. Ask the opponent was.
Asked really hard in the head with the judo shop.
So I would go to him and say, "They told me that you did it," and they'd go to them, and he would actually cry. And I don't mean it as an insult, but he was a very emotional character.
Yeah.
And then he'd be, you let me down. You tell Simon. That's what he used to call him, Simon. You told Simon I did it on purpose. And then the guys would be all sorry and whatnot. But the stories were balls. He was a character. I actually enjoyed having him around. For a guy who I despised in the beginning and tried to send home, by the end of it, you used to hate to see him go.
Yeah.
He was it was a headache at times. Do you remember Travellers? The Irish Travellers are tough people. Like, he's in fighters, like, you know. And he's like wanting to fight one. We're down in somewhere in the Midlands, and he was going into a chemist. And then I don't know if he saw them or they saw him. It was hard to miss balls. Yeah. Very loud character. And then once you realised what was going down and how tough they were, he was like, yeah, maybe after the show. Whereas before that, you never stop wanting to fight them. Like, Jesus. Yeah. You never had a shortage of problems with balls, but good problems, like, you know, with the bleeding, trying to start fights with people in the hotel. The owner be ringing me, isn't here trying to start a fight with a bunch of Hell's Angels.
I think if he liked you, though, he kind of liked you, and he was fine. And I think a lot of times he liked people. It's just like you said, he had a big personality, and sometimes was a little erratic and that.
Softy, really, wasn't he?
Yeah. You know.
And his stories, now, there's an infamous story that goes around, and he told us here about a tiger shark. He killed a tiger shark with a spork in New Jersey, out fishing. Like, I'm sure people have heard that story, so we won't go into it again. But did you hear his story about having the ghost of Chris Candido in his safe?
Yes. I heard that one.
Oh my God, what kind of a story was that? He keeps the ghost of Chris Candido in his safe at his house, and he's locked in there, and he only lets him out every now and then to talk to him. As in, Balls only lets Chris Candido out, it's safe to talk to him. And we had Sonny over here, Tammy Sitch, is that her name, Tammy Sitch?
Yeah.
To do a Q&A evening with, and we told her some of these stories, and she was laughing. Balls never even owned the safe. How could we keep him in the safe? And I remember we were trying to ring, I might still have that footage, I can pop it up here. During the show, she tried to ring Balls Mahoney to get the gossip on. Did you tell the story of Chris Candido's ghost in your safe? But he didn't answer. But he had some crazy stories how Lindsay Lohan's father wanted to bring out infant clothing called Baby Balls. And he was going to make Balls Mahoney a millionaire for Baby Balls. Again, you know, he was very entertaining for his stories, but he would try and convince you these stories were true. Like.
I remember the Chris Candido story, and I remember him telling the story and kind of like looking at the people, like looking at people beside me, going, "Anyone else hearing this story?"
I told this guy at the dressing room, but it was ECW, WWE, Smoky Mountain, and getting here to tell me, it's like, "Balls, you don't have to tell any of those stories here. Nobody cares, you know, everybody likes you don't need to impress anybody." And he kind of softened after that, didn't he? He didn't come out with as many stories once you realised he didn't have to impress anybody. Like, oh my God, he'd be caked in blood, the dry blood, walking around, be going in for food, into a bar, and he'd and he'd be shouting all over the bar. Oh, Jesus. And then he'd be wanting prescription drugs. Ireland's complete when it comes to drugs in Ireland. I'm not talking about heroin, things like that, but just like prescription drugs. It's completely different to America. And we're trying to get guys to go in and buy his. I said, no, I'm not doing here. Nurofen, 10 packets. Then he got one of the lads to go into his local doctor, make an appointment, trying to get the doctor to sign him over prescribed medication. Oh my God, the problems he would cause, like, you know.
Wow.
Yeah.
You see, these are the things that
good problems.
You see as the promoter, and maybe I don't see as the guy in the locker room with him.
He was, and then he'd actually TNA. It brings us back to a story. Talking about drugs with TNA, we go into that as well. But wanting to get drugs. Oh, can you bring me out of the? You know, I want to get high. It's like, nope. You're here to do your shows. And the last show and the last night, you could do that. But like for you, I know a lot of that tour. It was you and Doug.
Yeah.
And he would have been a lot with like Ballymun Brews and some of the other lads.
Yeah.
But how did you find him? Like comparing him to Doug, learning stuff. Like, how would you compare them?
He was more like Doug. I felt like Doug would give constructive criticism and be like, "Don't do that. Do this. Blah blah blah. What do you think? This." He would try and get the best. Balls was a different sort of character, as in he was just like. let's just go out and get loads of stuff in to make you look really cool. And he'd let me do lots of crazy things. In fact, he would suggest things, and I was like, I know, I'm not comfortable doing that at all. But that was cool in its own way. But in terms of like being a teacher or anything, he wasn't really that. He was more like, let's just go out and
have fun,
do a
with
450.
Yeah, it was different. Like he would do by the end of it, whatever he asked him to do, he would do. Whatever, 5-minute match, 15-minute match. So no complaints. I'm going to tell a bald story with Tyson T-Bone.
Oh. Okay.
From next UK down in Tipperary. But before I do, well, listen, we had the Irish Make-A-Wish Foundation. One of the fans that were at the shows was dying of cancer, young child.
It's sad.
And this child's final wish was to see Balls Mahoney in person. Could have asked for John Cena. Could have gone on to WWE, but no, wanted to get on to Irish Whip Wrestling and meet Balls Mahoney one last time. So a dying child's wish in the world was to see Balls Mahoney. I thought that was very unique.
Yeah,
and very shocking.
Sure.
And in fairness, they booked his flight to come over. It was between when we had shows, so there was nothing in it for him. He was just flying over midweek to meet this child, then going back. And he waived the fee, which I thought was very impressive. They offered to pay him some money, and he said no. And just before he was, I think it was the day before his flight, the child passed away. And he obviously didn't come over in the end, because he had no reason, because there was no shows on.
Well, I think, like, no matter what people thought of Balls, like, that says a lot about his character under it all. Like, you know, he might have been an eccentric individual, but obviously his heart was obviously in the right place.
So for a Balls with his t-shirts, I allow lads to sell their t-shirts, depending where they were in the card, maybe during intermission. I never would let lads go out before a show. You want the show to evolve as that happens, open a match, so forth. Maybe intermission, come out and sell the t-shirts, definitely after the show, but you had an opportunity to sell them. But the most important merch on the table is Irish Whip Wrestling merch. They always had to sell. But I remember Balls would be there and he'd be like shouting. Whenever I wasn't in the room, when I would leave the function room or the theatre to go out and do whatever, he would shout, "Buy my t-shirts." He'd get the mic. "I've got a child. My child is starving. You need to buy my t-shirts." And people that would guilt me, like, coming up buying the t-shirts, but I'd never give it out. It can't be doing that, like, you know. Oh. But like I said, it was always good problem with Balls. Like he was a character. But I don't know if you remember, we did a theatre called White's Theatre down in...
I remember the name.
Tipperary, South Tipperary. And we got there and it was a bandstand in the stage, which meant if you have your table here, we could have fit the 16-foot ring in it, but they went in with like 4 foot with the bandstand, which meant you couldn't fit the ring.
Oh.
Tyson T-Bone was a bit of everything. He was a tattoo artist, a wrestler. He was a bit of a handyman, and he did ring band jobs. Everything all around. Like, he could do everything except cut a promo. So he's there, and he fit the ring into a rectangle shape. And I had the footage somewhere, but I can't find it. But I have a picture of it. And I always remember, like, Balls was, it was a beautiful hot day. You wanted to sit outside, whatever. But the dressing room was under the stage, down in the building. And you could hear the whole audience upstairs as the show was going on. The place was packed. It was sold out, or close to sold out. About 250 people there. And so Balls is going on for his match with Tyson T-Bone. He was a tough guy, so I knew whatever he'd be able to Balls. And we were downstairs. I was talking to you and Doug. I was going about the match, and I was just trying to explain the ring, what way probably best to work because it's a rectangle shape. And all of a sudden, it's quiet. Can't hear that. For the whole show, you hear people's feet stomping. What's going on? And I remember walking upstairs, and some of the people peeked their head out. Nobody in the theatre.
They went outside, didn't they?
Oh, but we didn't know that for maybe 30 seconds.
So we came up into the venue, and it was like, the whole venue's empty. Everyone's gone. The crowd's gone. The wrestlers
gone. Maria, that's what the shit is, isn't it? The crew vanished.
Yeah.
And we're looking, and there's a piano there. And remember, there's nobody, no ringing out. The music box was gone. And I remember going outside, peeking out the door. there was 250 people spewing onto a tiny street, nearly a laneway, of all these people squashed into the street, and they're brawling outside.
Smashing each other's heads into the ring van.
And then people coming out of the house and out of the park, running down, thinking it's a legit street fight going on. And I was so angry. It was
Didn't Doug or you start playing the piano?
Doug was playing the piano. I remember at one stage, before I actually went out to hear the piano going, I looked back and Doug was just casually playing the piano. Completely empty theatre, playing the piano, and the whole match has gone on outside. So I go outside, I was like, balls, get back inside. I was like, Simon, the ring, it's a rectangular ring. They need a show, I was like, get inside. And I was going to T-Bone, saying, get him inside. In fairness to T-Bone, he's trying his best with Balls. And Balls give him a little slap in the back. And you have like 250 people squashed around watching, and you're trying to keep kayfabe, like, you're doing. So I'm walking away, it's like, Sam! T-Bone would come over and hit him, and he'd ignore it, like, and he'd be like, Sam! And I said, I'm going to send you home. I said, I'm going to send you home, like, please. I was like, yeah. It was actually funny now, but at the time it was very stressful.
Oh, yeah.
He's following. I said, go back to T-Bone. And then he grabs T-Bone on the head, and he's just walking up the road with T-Bone in the headlock and all these people around.
This is generally one of these experiences that you can only once know if you're in wrestling. It's definitely.
Whereas now, like, people would have had on the camera phones out.
Absolutely.
Police car down the end of the lane. Police, a guard, as we call them, a guard car. Came in, I was like, oh, someone's like calling the police, because it looks like a street fight, like, you know. And I thought they were going to come in, but then comes in, I gave out to him on the stairs, and he was kind of blocking the crowd coming in with T-Bone, not letting him in, and he's like trying to have a conversation. I was like, get them in. And brought people started coming in who weren't after paying for their tickets. So there's people who had seats who couldn't get back into their seats, because there's people standing in the aisle looking at what's going on. But technically it was more people to buy merch, but they didn't buy a ticket. And there's people giving out who couldn't get back into their seats because somebody up the street,
someone else came in and just
off the street.
You got watched this.
And I got a lot of complaints where I was like, oh, I could have strangled them, like, you know.
Yeah.
He got a drink with T-Bone, he finished the match, and then he cuts a promo at the end of the match. Thank you for coming to the audience. I just wanted him to finish the match, get pinned and go backstage, like, thank you for coming out, and thank you to Sam. Sam is the greatest promoter. And he's trying to be nice, and we think we're going to send him home. I was like, come on. And what was it he did? Why, apologies for the ring. I know it's a rectangle ring, and no one had mentioned the ring being a rectangle. They were just doing their matches. It was in a theatre on the stage, and nobody had noticed all that. Yeah. Or you wouldn't know that they noticed. And then you could see people talking to each other and looking up. And I remember telling the referee, tell him to get down there. That's it. Tell him he's gone. Go home. I get in the car. He's going home. And sad. Yeah. But that's a Balls Mahoney story.
That's a great story.
He stayed on for the rest of the tour, obviously. Yeah. Doug had a chat with him that night, I think, as well. Like, give him the cop on.
That's such an amazing story, and I now you've told it, I absolutely remember it. I remember walking up into the venue and everything, and nothing being there. I remember someone playing the piano. It was Doug, and just like sitting around, and Doug sitting there playing the piano.
It is everybody.
And I remember looking outside and seeing like Balls and T-Bone smashing each other's heads off the side of the ring van with this huge big crowd around them going.
Well, that was an experience.
Yeah.
But that's Balls, and Balls was there for the rest of the tour. I mean, I think Balls is nearly in the whole episode himself, just telling stories about him.
Yeah.
I'll tell one final Balls story.
Yeah, great.
We were doing different theatre. Again, it was on the Tipperary Waterford border, I think it was. So prior to the show, in Ireland, just these spots being kind of haunted. Balls was a self-proclaimed Satanist. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Pentagon and all that. So we brought in some haunted spots here in Ireland, and there was one spot where the car would roll by itself, kind of up a slight hill.
Yeah.
Were you in the car for that?
No, I wasn't, but there's several spots. Like
it was me, Doug, Balls, and Mick Wall, and he was driving. So there's a few spots, but they say it's all about something to do with the
magnetic pole or something.
So Balls is all excited, it's haunted, and I can feel all this energy. Anyway, but Balls like to be the centre of attention. So we're driving back down this mountain, and it's real, like, kind of, she's coming around the mountain and she's coming, that song, because there's kind of a loop coming around. And me and Doug are in the back talking about whatever we're talking. So Mick is trying to talk back to us. The driver's trying to talk back to us. And nobody's paying attention to the balls. He's telling them all these stories. And he's poking the driver going, you're not listening. And he's like, so I had this guy. And he's talking to me. It's a street fight with somebody. And he goes, then I got the guy. And then I jumped him. And he started hitting the driver full force with chops to get his attention. And I just remember the driver lost control of the car. Like full force chops coming around the loop on the mountain. And its car started to... It only lasted a few seconds, but... I thought we were going off the side of the mountain. Me, Doug, Mick were just panicking and shouting at balls to stop hitting him. Now, it was only for a couple of seconds he kept hitting while the car was swerving, but oh my God, it lasted so long. We pulled over the car. We didn't die, thank God. And I remember all three of us took a turn, giving out to him.
One at a time.
And he started crying. But just, I don't even know if he was really crying, but he had his little, like, but I'll never forget that. I almost killed us in the car. And he goes, you weren't listening to me. Anyway, that's the last ball stories. We're here to talk about a lot more stuff, and most importantly, you as the Irish Whip heavyweight champion. So what I want to move on to is, so you wrestle all these international guys who are coming in. I think the last run with an international guy touring around the country was Kevin Thorne.
Yeah, Kevin Thorne. That was cool. Yeah.
He was the vampire gimmick, wasn't he?
Yep. He was. He obviously had the really cool vampire gimmick. I got to tag team with him as well, somewhere as well, which I thought was really cool.
Derry, I think that was.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I really liked Kevin. I thought he was a really cool guy. He was
a big guy, wasn't he? He was wide,
giant guy. I don't think he's in the wrestling business anymore. He sells houses. I think he's really good at it. That's his gimmick now. And I think if you look at what he does, he brings a little bit of that wrestling flavour to it. He's very good at it. But still think he should do the vampire gimmick.
But you went on the tour way. Now at that stage, we had stopped doing the DVD recordings.
Yeah.
So it was basically just sold house shows. So with DVDs, we shot a few yourself with the international guys. But at that stage, for me, what it cost to shoot a DVD taping, bring in the international guys, pay for it to be edited, and then you're putting the DVD together, the cases, the cover, the artwork, and then you're selling. So you need to sell X amount before you make a profit.
Yeah.
But at that time in Ireland, around 2009, coming into 2010, Celtic Tiger, Irish economy went bust. And it was very hard to try and get as many people to shows and make money. But I used to buy bulk load of wrestling DVDs from liquidators. And I'd get some of these triple disc DVDs or whatever WWE for €2 compared to what it would cost me to make an Irish Whip DVD. And you would sell a few hundred DVDs in your first run, and then it'd go down to maybe a couple of hundred, then to 100. So, but with these things, you didn't have that worry. You just, there you go. So there was wasn't as much need to bring international guys in, because one, economy was going down, and two, I could just get this loads of DVDs.
Yeah.
Secondhand, not secondhand, but buy them off liquidators. So how was that for you, not having that caliber of international talent anymore on tours?
It was less pressure. A little bit sad though as well, because I always felt that having those international guys made sure that like there was always something as a performer, as a wrestler. It means there was always kind of someone to learn from and whatnot. Now it also, I think, it kind of changed my role a little bit, because then there was also there was other guys there that needed to learn, so I kind of had to do a little bit more of that. But yeah, it was a mixed bag, I guess. There was less pressure sometimes, but that's not always a good thing, you know.
No. I know with the school as well. Again, the school is a whole different podcast in itself. I decided to close the school down. Schools are supposed to fund the shows based, but the shows were funding our school. So I decided, right, we're going to close it down and do training on the road as we went on, which ideally most trainees want to be on the road. And we were offering to people to train on the road.
Yeah.
And you took that over completely, like. So how did you find being a trainer on the road, as well as a lot of pressure of having to be the main event? And
I feel quite strongly about this, because I know spoke about it briefly. I think learning on the road in a lot of ways is a much more realistic and better experience than going to a school, a fixed place, a nice location to do your training. When a trainee comes on the road, they learn all aspects of the wrestling business. So they've got to like put up the ring and sell merch and usher people to their seats, or do timekeeper, a lot of different roles that maybe they wouldn't get if they were in a school. And in school they just like to learn how to run the ropes and tie up, and then start learning psychology and stuff. But you could also see like the trainees that really wanted it, because they'd have to be willing to get in a car and sit in the car for X amount of hours, and then hang around, do their training, assist with the show in some capacity, then take the ring down and do all that. So it was an education in the wrestling business rather than just like this is how you just do the physical aspect of wrestling. Because to be successful, you need to have the want and desire to do it. You need to be willing to put like all the hours into it. And it's very easy, like if there was just a school that like you live down the road, to pop up on a Saturday. And so I think we had a crew of people, and very quickly there was people dropped out, but there was also a good group of trainees that stayed on and did quite well, I think.
It did. So, I mean, in the training school, people would pay their weekly subs, and it wasn't like an MMA where you'd have to pay. To me, a mature place, people pay their month in advance. They pay as they went. But when we went training on the road, people paid in installments, not a substantial amount of money, but blocks of money.
Yeah.
So that way, if they dropped out after a month, well, you pay for 3 months in advance. And once they paid for X amount at a certain time, that was everything else was covered. But I found there was less competition. And in a bad way, like when you had your regular school and you had your gym shows, there were so many trainees, they could practice whatever before you put them in whatever spot on a C level or a D level shows. But that was gone. So lads were very known they were going to have a spot once he stuck with it. So I don't think they had that same fire, that same hunger in them as the previous crew did. Because the likes of a Manson and a Bruiser, when they came up, they worked at those characters. Like, even though you give them characters, like, this is what I want you to do, they knew there was other guys that would come in here and take their spot. Yeah. Whereas with these guys knew, oh, well, sure, look, we pay
there's no...
Yeah. And
that's a good point, yeah.
I don't know, I would say lazy. They just hadn't got the same good oomph that they did. Like, had its pros and its cons.
Yeah, pros and cons. I never really thought of it that way. That's really interesting. Pros and cons. It would be great if, like, there could be, if you could mix and match the both worlds. You could have like a training school and go like, okay, trainees, this is when the show is coming. You got to come on the road, and you got to do everything and see. Let's see who wants it whenever it's not so glamorous.
And you hear stories of people in the States traveling like hundreds and hundreds of miles by themselves to get to somewhere to try and get a spot.
Yeah.
Whereas these guys were given transport getting there. And people don't appreciate, I think in Ireland, maybe even to a degree in England, if they're given a lift, they're brought to a venue and you help out and you do whatever. Some parts of the world, people didn't have that opportunity. You had to make their own way there. Yeah. People just take things for granted, I find, these days, training. Some shows, a lot of promotions in Ireland now are regional. They just stick to the one venue, like a gym show nearly once every 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And lads train for 3 weeks for those matches, 4 weeks for those matches. It's not the same as running national territory. Sorry lads, you know what? We're near the curfew, so we need to put the last 2 matches into a tag match. Change of the match.
Go.
2 minutes notice. So people panic with that. Like.
Yeah.
So for you, when we started to do all this, it was around 2010 into 11, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. And realistically, from around 2010 onwards is when it was more just the Irish crew and the odd touring guy. The odd time T-Bone, Tyson T-Bone, or Max and Angelis or Styx and those guys who from England. Guys from England will come in. So How was that transition for you, not having the same quality of... Even with the English guys were good when they came in.
Yeah, they were.
So they weren't around for the younger guys, but you were married, as they say, to... Like Sheamus and Drew, you were married to supermodel.
Yeah.
Up and down and around the whole country. Day in, week out, all year round.
Yeah. I don't have anything bad to say in a sense of working with those guys. They Supermodel was really, really good. Supermodel was really good, and the likes of Styx and T-Bone, all really, really good. It just felt a little bit different with maybe some of the American veteran guys. The English guys and stuff, they were part of the team that come in. It would be all cool, we were excited to see each other. We were friendly, but sometimes when you had an international guy come in, it was like, oh, everyone, shh, it's like the teachers come in. They're going to be a good teacher or going to be a bad teacher. So it was a bit of a different locker room environment, I think. But I enjoyed my time working with those guys as well. I think I wrestled Supermodel so much.
You probably wrestled him probably 100 times.
Yeah, we literally at the end, we did not have to plan the matches at all. We could just go out and
it was planned, but it was
plan some spots or something.
Yeah,
we could go out and we could do stuff, and we knew each other so well that a lot of the stuff we could just work on the fly, and we started having we really enjoyed it. We started having lots of fun in the ring with what was going on, and what we could do. And I knew his timing really well, and he knew my timing really well when we were doing things. And then we started getting a little wiser as well, and starting trying to go, okay, what's the crowd like? Where are the little hot spots, and how do we get everyone into it? And but I remember some challenging matches. We wrestled each other so much, and then it seemed to be there was a lot of stipulation changes in the matches to keep us on our toes.
Yeah, no, it was up and down around the country, and we were still doing a lot of soul shows, festivals, and house shows, self-promote shows. So with different audiences, you had to keep happy in a certain way. We might do a soul-on show in a little village in the middle of Clare. We were never there before, so I could do whatever because you were never there before. Whereas somewhere we were in Leitrim. We were there a few times, so I don't really have to do it separate this time. But in fairness to this, he's always pulled off a good match. But I'll move on to that's part of the reason why I changed over the belt. But before we do, 2011 was when not you, but a few of the lads had a TNA tryout here in Dublin. So would you like to talk us through your TNA tryout back in the day?
Yeah.
In a bit of detail.
So first of all, the TNA tryout we were part of the ring crew, first of all, so we had to go in and help with the ring.
But initially we weren't, you lads weren't supposed to be part of the ring crew.
No.
Supposed to be there for the tryout.
That's what I'm saying.
How would you get into it? Could you just do this?
That was not expected.
No.
But no bad thing, no problem putting up rings or anything like that. That's fine. And the guy Bob
Rosen.
Yep.
Lovely guy.
Really.
He's with AEW now. He's there.
Yeah, he was a cool guy, and listening to the craft of putting up a ring, because he knew it inside and out, and he was really, really interested.
And we packed everything together. It was quite interesting, wasn't it? He kept everything pristine and clean.
Yeah, he was really interested. It was really cool to see those type of rings and how they go up, and he a master at his craft, and also he told some really cool stories, because obviously he's been around and he's seen everyone and blah blah blah.
I think he's Samoan, or he's some kind of islander, but he has that very calm, relaxed, happy, hasn't he?
Yeah, and again that worked because that kept us all on side, and we went and put the ring up and a cage, I think, later in the night.
No, that was a different trial, because I think 3 or 4 different TNA shows or trials. We'll go into that story a bit. And that night it was 40 as I put forward.
Yeah.
Jason Rotunda, Scottish guy.
Yes.
And there was a couple of other Irish guys. Now, realistically, it was only really you and Jason who I thought were at the calibre of any kind of potential there.
So it was D'Lo was the man in the ring, so to speak, conducting it. I think Jeff Jarrett was outside the ring in the nosebleed somewhere, looking at his phone, not particularly interested.
Ended to be interested.
D'Lo put us through our paces a little bit, gave us good talking to first, the obligatory wrestling business talk, and then we were in the ring, and he kind of put us through our paces with all the basics, hitting the ropes, bumping, blah blah, and then got to get in and sort of tie up with him and move around a little bit.
But did you feel like you had a very good opportunity to potentially get in with TNA?
Honestly,
yeah,
not really. No, it didn't feel like that much of a tryout.
But beforehand, did you think it was an opportunity compared to when you actually did the trial?
Not really. No. A weird thing. This is a strange thing. This is going to sound really strange. Bear with me. My heart was elsewhere. I was thinking WWE. That's where I wanted to go. So, like, although TNA came up and that, it was like, I want to be there. That was the sense. But it was a cool experience. Yeah.
I can remember at the end of the day, Bob was telling us, they're talking about Mandrake and they're talking about Jason, the Scottish guy. And, but you never know whether they're just trying to work it. Because I know they were trying to keep us around so the lads would take the ring down.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Yeah. And Jarrett was supposed to come back. And I think it was you. Was it you and Jason you were supposed to have a chat to?
Yeah.
And you just were hanging around, and then you were gone on the bleeding bus. And I just remember feeling dirty afterwards, going, "Geez, this lad stayed around." And Jarrett went off the bus.
Everyone was gone, and then there was a certain guy that had to be carried out from the locker room onto the bus because he was so out of it.
Yeah, that's right. A very well-known superstar. But look,
yeah.
Do you remember that? Actually, Ric Flair. Do you remember that? He was going around in a very bad mood. I discussed this with John Noble. Seemed such a legend, and he was so unapproachable. Do you remember? He was very angry.
Yeah.
And it turned out that basically he didn't get an advance off TNA, and that's where all the commotion was backstage. But I just remember that tension that was back there. And you're thinking, who do we say hello to? Who do we not like? Do we gonna?
It was a strange environment.
Very hostile.
Hostile is the way I describe it. There was some people who were really, really cool. There was people who, like, you just know reputation, and I thought, like, would definitely not be very cool, but turned out to be, like, really awesome. Like, well, not awesome, but, like, they were nice, they were pleasant, but wasn't expecting it.
Somewhere in fairness. Doug was there, Doug Williams, nice guy. He's been in Irish Whip a few times, very professional. Same thing, puts over the local talent and he does it well. Just had a brief chat with him. I think Mark Haskins was there. He was only in for one shot. I think that was
That's right.
The belt, win a belt for Len and RQW. Very brief chats. And Magnus. What was Magnus known now? Nick Aldis.
Yeah.
I found him to be very arrogant, very rude. Now, I do listen to snippets on YouTube of the Keeping It 100 podcast. But the list of bits of that, and he's been on it a few times. He talks about how in his youth he was very arrogant and very rude, and he can understand why people didn't like him, might cost him opportunities. And I think that's interesting because he was arrogant, he was rude. He says he's a changed man now. But I don't think wrestling allows people that opportunity to change, really. Or even if they have changed, I should say. I don't think it gives them that opportunity to prove that they've changed. So he talks about opportunities he's lost and not getting back. So interesting. Like he was rude, Nick Aldis, but he says he's a changed person now. But wrestling just isn't that mature, I don't think, to give people second chances, really, is it?
I think the wrestling industry, like the entertainment industry in general, can, like we've mentioned, can be a little bit toxic.
A little bit. A lot toxic, yeah.
It can bring out the worst in people. Yeah. You can have someone who's probably under it all, a genuinely nice person, but wrestling kind of programs this badness into
But when you're traveling with cars with lads or ladies and you're listening to all this and
you're paranoid about spots.
You're paranoid and you get involved with the chats and all that, and it's just the way wrestling is. And then you're ashamed of yourself that gossiped in the car like a little old woman.
Yeah.
It is. It can be very. That's why Irish Whip was always trying to keep it very positive. And from around 2009, we kind of reinvented the roster, which we talked about here with the training and that. It was a much more positive place. But I don't think that the new crew, not the old crew, you and Ian and Captain Rooney, the new crew of trainees just hadn't got the same hunger or the same want as the previous ones, and I noticed that myself. But anyway, so that was the TNA tryout. But I remember it was the next year there was a bit of a tryout again, and that was the one with the cage. Oh, yeah. But I remember asking for you lads to be fed, and you weren't fed, and so there was a huge difference with TNA tryouts and WWE tryouts, just the professionalism, really, wasn't there?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like light years difference. It was completely different. D'Lo was great. He was great. Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic at what he did and gave us really good advice. WWE, there was William Regal was conducting it. Robbie Brookside was there, so there's already 2 legends there. And then Finlay was down and Jamie Noble was down as well.
And tell me, was Brookside or Regal on their phone?
No,
a few rows back.
absolutely not. No, they were watching the Hawk, Regal in particular. And we got, I don't recall his name, but one of the WE's referees was in, because we all had little matches as well. And it was a physical, they gave us a good physical workout as well.
That's what I'm trying to say. So with the trials with WE, the phone joke was cracked at TNA with Jarrett pretending to be interested in his phone. So they wanted to find potential talent.
Yeah.
I suppose you're excited. I mean, we just get someone to do the ring for us, like, you know?
Yeah.
So to go back to the tryouts, initially when I used to get tryouts for lads back in the day, you would ring the office. You'd have the number, you'd ring the number, or you'd email Johnny Ace or Simon Dean. What was Simon Dean? Mike Bucci, Tommy Dreamer and that when you were in there. Then it changed.
Mark Carano.
And then Drew McDonald was, remember at one stage he was in
UK
charge of getting
relations.
So everything went through Drew McDonald. And that's how Supermodel got his tryout, through Drew.
Yeah.
Eventually. I'll go back to that a little bit when we're talking about, after your tryout. And then, but after that, Robbie Brookside took over the Drew spot, didn't he? And that's how you actually got your...
Yeah, I think I was like one of the first groups to be brought in by Robbie Brookside. I'd never met Robbie personally before that, but I'd done shows alongside Frankie Sloan. So, I think it was...
That's his cousin, isn't it? I think it's some... I don't know if she's a real cousin or...
They were tag partners for a long
we
time.
were around together a long time from Liverpool.
Yeah, the Liverpool lads. Yeah. And Frankie was really cool. I liked Frankie a lot. He was, again, a really good locker room leader. Lots of good advice. And I just stayed in contact with him, and he recommended me, I think, to Robbie Brookside, and then that's when I got my try, which I was.
So how was your tryout experience with WWE?
It was really cool, as in it was in the O2 Arena in London. So is there a bigger, better venue to do it, which is more intimidating? And it was obviously TV taping, so there was full roster was there as well. So you're obviously there and you're in your suit and you're being as professional as possible, and you're seeing all these guys who you've idolized from your little kid, and you're trying to keep it together, and because you've got to get in the ring, and like I said, and there was a bunch of other guys that had tryouts as well, and oh boy, some of them were really, really good, and some of them were maybe not so good in terms of their wrestling. You could tell they barely wrestled at all.
Some of the guys who were good.
Tango, Tim Wiley was there. I thought
for Brian Dixon, didn't he?
Yeah, I thought he was really, really good.
Wasn't he small though?
Yeah, he's probably about my height, maybe a little bit smaller. But he was really good. There was a guy from South Africa, Slade Mercer. I think is his name. I thought he was really, really good in the ring, and he was a tall guy, and he had that South African accent. And then there was a couple of guys who were like, there was two guys who were twins, and they were like super jacked, big bodybuilder guys. And I think they were like literally like rolling out the contract with them as soon as they seen them. And there was a football player. I think he was a goalkeeper for a Premiership team at one point or something. But he was like a huge big tank. And I think
that's not that guy that's there now. Riddick, is it? Riddick something?
I don't know. I just know he was a football goalkeeper, and he was in incredible shape. So it was really interesting looking. Like, because I was in good shape, and the likes of Tango and people like that, good shape, but then you see these guys who are like, they look like
and good shape,
and yeah, like you're like, whew, you're just you can see that's like the WWE prototype. So it was almost like they were looking for like, we're going to go half wrestlers and half just people that have the look, if that makes sense. Yeah. They were looking at both. I remember strangely at my tryout, so the tryouts, they had the physical thing. You had to work a match, and then you had to go backstage. They took some pictures of you know, obviously for the records, and then you went and you lined up outside a room, and then you go into the room one at a time, and you'd cut a promo. So you'd have to. So I thought that was really cool that they were looking at various different aspects of what you do, not just what you were doing in the ring, also that you can talk as well. So I thought that was pretty cool.
How would you feel it went for you on the day? What was your best part? In ring, promo, how you carried yourself?
The in-ring stuff is like, tryouts are just so short. Do you know what I mean? And you're like, you have 3 minutes, so you know you can only do so much. And like, to me, if someone's like, you got 3 minutes, well, you go in the ring, and like, what do? You can't really tell that much of a story in 3 minutes. And I'd like to think is by that stage I was a good worker. I'd been seasoned so much that I could get in and I could wrestle and I could tell a really good story, but it's kind of hard to do in 3 minutes, especially like, you know, my thing was I could go in and wrestle and tell a story, but you need a little bit of time to do that.
Well, I suppose for them, like,
they want to see if you got it.
Yeah.
Straight off the bat.
And if you're on TV, you could have a match that's 2-3 minutes long, so it's the same. Yeah.
Yeah,
you
I understand.
fit everything in, like, you know.
Yeah.
I do think it was just timing with you. It was just bad timing.
I had someone comment, one of the people there, they were like, "Oh, you're getting on a little bit." Like, I was 29 at the time. I don't think I was that old. Like, was it maybe 29 or 28? I was around that sort of age.
And tell me, we'll go on about there, but did Sheamus do anything to help you out that day, being a former Irish World Champion?
I bumped into Sheamus in the back. I think during Raw, I think he'd finished his match or something. He was backstage, and I bumped into him and I said hello, and I think he remembered me. You know, he was there when I was there. We were doing our thing.
Ring announcing his match.
Yeah, yeah. I think he was gone shortly after.
Yeah. Same year.
And he was like, asking how everyone was doing in Irish Whip, and he seemed really pleasant. And they asked how my tryout went, and I felt it was like, I did my best, and that's all I can do really. And he was like, he'll go away and have a chat to people, and off he went.
What people, like, isn't people who were looking after the tryouts?
I think so. Yeah.
And they would come back?
No.
At least he said hello.
Yeah.
So, you were telling me a story on your way out, then you bumped into some influential people.
Oh, God. Yeah. So, I kind of knew I was rounding things up, by the way, here. So, in terms of wrestling. But I was leaving, and, you know, when you have your WWE Tryouts, you have your nice suit, which was very ill-fitting because I was not used to wearing suits. And I've got my little trolley bag, and I'm wandering out of the O2 Arena thinking like, I wonder how that went. And not sure. Try my best. Can't do any better. I looked down this little corridor, and the bottom of the corridor, there was 3 figures standing there. Triple H, The Undertaker, and Vince McMahon. And they were all having a conversation together. And I was like, I got nothing to lose now. So I just trundled my little handle down and introduced myself and just said, thank you for the opportunity. And, I know it's a golden rule that you're not really supposed to approach Vince, but I didn't have anything to lose. The Undertaker was cordial and nice and pleasant, and Vince, very nice, cordial, and Triple H was looking at me like, security. So
you obviously didn't leave a lasting impression.
I think they'll remember me, but probably for the wrong reasons.
Maybe for 10 seconds.
Yeah, but
at the next security meeting, you're not doing your job.
I already knew. I knew, I'm not really supposed to do this, but I'm not going to lose. So. I literally got to the flight home, though, before I got my email, my dear Joan, thank you for trying, but no thank you.
At least he'd hold you in fairness.
Yeah.
Anything in life really would you apply for, if you get a yes or a no, but at least you know where you stand.
Yeah.
As opposed to with TNA, we're interested in that guy, Next year comes around, tell him to come back. It's like, it's either a yes or a no, but it's nice. And again, like we said, with your background in combat sports, mixed martial arts, you have that maturity. And I do believe myself, even to this day, I always think it's better to bring somebody, if somebody's even has a background in rugby, do you have a mindset? An athlete's mindset, and then you can work from there,
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a bit of a two-way street, people who love wrestling and passionate, but sometimes you have bad habits when they come in. And so if I owned a corporate company of that level, I would hire people that would bring that caliber
do what they're supposed
athlete in.
to. Yeah.
So it's not all.
You can see why they want guys who are young and trainable, rather than people that have their own preconceived notion of what they should be doing.
No, in saying that, I've had my deals with WWE over the years, and sometimes they do come across as an indie mentality. Sometimes, depending on what department you're dealing with, like WWE obviously it's a global business, and all different types of people are wrestling and non-wrestling, but sometimes when you're dealing with some departments, it's like you're dealing with the indie wrestling still. But at the end of the day, I found with WWE as a promoter, when they were on top, when they were popular, independent promotions did well. You'd bring in, like a Eugene did very well for his Kid Cash, sell tickets, so forth. By the time Kevin Thorne came in, you could see the change. Kevin Thorne wasn't at the level of exposure on TV, even though he was quite impressive, and again, he was good to have over. But he was at that level where WWE wasn't as popular as that stage it had been previously. It obviously went down over the years, where now it's not as popular. But when they did well, everybody did well. And it's the same in England. Like so Brian Dix and Scott Conway would say the same thing. When WWE did well, they did well.
They all picked up.
So at the end of the day, the WWE, whether directly or indirectly, does or was at one stage helping to put money in people's pockets, Yeah. So you had your tryouts. Both of them didn't work out, unfortunately. I think the WWE Tryout should have come for you a couple of years earlier. There was a lot of heat between myself and Sheamus, and again, I'm not going to go into that here. You had also started to do some shows. I remember Peter Nolte, who was Orig Williams' partner, got on to me about possibly running shows together, sharing talent, but his heart wasn't in it when Orig went. Orig passed on. So his last tour was Orig's wife, wasn't it? And Orig's daughter were part of the tour.
Yes.
So you and Ian were on some of the shows on the tour.
That's right. Yeah.
But I remember him telling me that he was told, again, won't mention names, but by a very well-known WWE producer, tell guys not to mention Irish Whip Wrestling when they go for tryouts, because people travel in cars communicate, and so again, I heat with people, but I felt bad that came out. Now, the only people who realistically to me in Irish Whip that were worth tryouts was you and Ian. This is a supermodel, and I'd be lying if I said anybody else. But I feel, because of me and Sheamus having our heat with each other, and wherever we wanted to get back at me, I feel that you suffered for that. And again, I'm not here to blame Sheamus, but it's heat with me. And I think that's what took a while for you to get your tryout. And you only got it, not through me, or not through mention Irish Whip, you got it through Robbie Brookside.
Yeah.
Ian got his through Drew McDonald, and I told Ian not to mention Irish Whip. But at least I was glad that Peter Nutley told us that.
Yeah.
Because then we knew, this makes sense why we can't get tryouts for yourselves. But at that stage for you, and I felt bad, and I think maybe there's some animosity. I felt guilty. I know you're a bit annoyed. If you had your tryout 2 years earlier, you could have moved on with your life.
Yeah.
2 years earlier.
Yeah.
So your goal was WWE. If you knew back then it wasn't going to work out in 2010, say 2009 even. I think your tryout was 2012, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So let's say 2010 into 11. At least then you could have made the plans for the life you ended up achieving. Like.
Yeah.
And I kept saying, give one more year, which ended up being given 2 more years. And you would get into tremendous shape. You'd work out that bit harder.
Yeah, I would treat those like times where WWE were going to be in the UK like, like a bodybuilding show. I would diet really hard and like make sure my ring craft was good and everything. Like it meant a lot to me. It was like, right, a phone call's going to come, man. It's going to happen this time. I'm ready. And it was really disappointing when it didn't. And I think like anything, I think like when it kept happening, it kind of kicked the snot out of me a wee bit because I really tried, and I think I lost heart a little bit. But there was also other avenues and other things going on in my life as well that I started noticing that I started enjoying a little bit. Like training people, personal training and coaching people.
But if you think about it, like that goal is gone, so why would you not enjoy?
Yeah, I think it started like
that was the payoff.
I started going, this is hurting. And this is like, this is nice over here. And I think that there was like I said, there was never a time where I went, I am done with wrestling. Even to this day, I've never said like, right now I'm done. It just kind of happened. It just transitioned,
And you have quite a very impressive life. And I mean, no one has to be a multi-millionaire. No one has to be a celebrity. Family, home, all important.
Happiness.
Exactly.
Happiness. I'm pretty sure
to share it with.
Some of the richest, most successful people, not just in wrestling, but in life in general, may not be the happiest people in the whole world. Like, I'm very lucky to have everything I have. I have a wonderful wife. I have amazing young child. And I have my own martial arts school, and I have my personal training business, and like life is very, very full. And
where we're filming this actually is in your martial arts gym, and this is in your personal training room, which is quite beautiful. The camera can only see what's behind us, but the decor is great. Deja in your bodybuilding days.
Yep, I did a little bit of bodybuilding, kind of like just after wrestling. I did some bodybuilding, and the first time I competed was in the men's physique division, All Ireland WABA, and I placed second, and then I went back the next year and I won it, and then I retired from bodybuilding because it was so bloody hard.
You left wrestling in 2013. From around 2015, Irish Whip started to become seasonal. So I would run from May to September with like more or less completely sold on shows.
Yeah.
So definitely 2016, 100% sold on shows. 16, 17, 18, 19. And I'd run about 30 shows roughly over that time period. So lads would keep that belt between September to the following March without going around doing house shows anymore. Like, so I'd squeeze everything in, and then I started to live a life between those pockets, and that's when I got a taste back for life. But for me as well, I was married, separated, and then coming into my divorce, which anyone who's divorced, particularly in Ireland, it's a very costly experience, and you lose, your home, but you're not going to go into that here. So I wasn't going to keep doing as well big shows, 1,000-seat arenas and big marquee names coming in. I had priorities at that stage, and that's when I took a step back and exclusively stepped up, sold on shows and little villages and towns. So we moved away from the big venues.
Yeah.
So what we would spend to hire a 1,000-seat venue, I could have run maybe 4 or 5 shows for that.
Yeah.
And that's what we would do. But we did these little villages, but had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Donegal, the back end of Donegal, Glen Clonmackill. You were saying the first story earlier on, going in somewhere that getting lost in the mountains.
Yeah. And if you've been on the moors driving in these roads and there's like all the mist coming down and then sheep just randomly just stopped in the middle of the road and you'd have to get out and shoot the sheep and driving, and we found the venue literally up, literally like it seemed like the top of a mountain somewhere. There was this big, but like just like a big tin shed, and we were like, oh my God, is there even going to be people here? Like maybe we just got the invite up here to be murdered or something. But literally, like, we went in, someone let us in, set up the ring, and then all of a sudden there was like, it seemed like a couple of hundred people come from nowhere, and they were all ravenous for wrestling. It was like an amazing crowd.
But that's what I'm saying, like, it was great fun. They were your sold on shows, and again, we would do little villages, but places like that became, people hadn't seen it before, up in the mountains, out in the outskirts. You were taking a risk if you're running those, but by selling the show on for a fee,
yeah,
and then you make your money as well on the merch. Some of them were great fun.
Yeah,
absolutely great fun, like, you know.
And like you said, a lot of the times the crowds were like really hungry for wrestling. They hadn't seen it, so it would do. And as a performer, it was great as well. You know, when you have a crowd that like react to everything, it's really cool. Sometimes if you're like, say you did a lot of shows in Dublin, you were in Dublin a lot, the crowd were kind of like maybe a little desensitized to it because they'd seen so much wrestling.
Exactly. And then other promotions would pop up that would just run in Dublin. But it came to a stage where we never ran Dublin.
Yeah.
What was it, 3 years?
Yeah, there was a period of time when there's no Dublin
shows. Dublin for 3 years.
Yep.
Because there's so much going on everywhere.
Yeah.
And they're travelling up now, and it was good fun. Staying at the B&Bs. And there was one time in, I think it was a coastal town in Northern Ireland, and there was a problem with the ring band. It broke down, and you had to entertain a bunch of kids to keep them for like an hour just talking about anything and everything until we got there.
Who's your favourite superhero? All that sort of stuff. Yeah, but it was good. It was cool. And then the ring van eventually turned up.
And that particular town, like most of these venues we're talking about, like a shed, little community centres.
Yeah.
But there was one or two particular ones that we saw that had these lighting setups. Oh my God, amazing venues where you'd actually tape TV or a DVD in it.
Oh yeah.
But because it's in the middle of nowhere, realistically, it's not viable. You couldn't bring in ex-WWE, Japan names, ECW, whatever, and go there because you wouldn't get the audience that you needed to cover costs.
Yeah.
But just to have the grants from local councils, some beautiful parts of the country, going into the little nooks and crannies of it.
Oh, absolutely. And meeting the local people as well, and like...
And sellouts, look, people go on about, it was sold out every night and we had 10,000 people. We'd have quite a few sellouts, but it's only like 150 people, 200 people, but in these tiny little villages.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was great.
And the atmosphere was always really good.
And when it was sold on, you don't have an advertising cost. You would email them on just a blank picture for the posters. You'd no street team to look after. So you'd actually save a fair amount of money.
Yeah. And
it was somebody we could work out a deal for accommodation. It worked out well. I was kind of saying, why didn't I do this years ago? So the days were gone anyway of the marquee names, the big DVD tapings, the big arenas to where it went down. People thought Irish Whip was gone. But we just didn't advertise online, because if we were advertising online, people would then try and get the show that was sold on.
Yeah.
Cheaper,
Yes, absolutely, yeah. Because that's the unfortunate competitive nature of other wrestling promotions and wrestling promoters, I guess.
And then I remember there was one particular guy who would try and sell to some of the venues at a ridiculously cheap price, and then he'd cancel because he'd realise, oh well, I can't do a show at that price. And they'd ring me going, can you do it at this price? Nope, the price is the original what I asked for last year, or this, and it just became more of a hassle as it went along. But for you, up and down the road, defending that belt, all the different towns, going around the loop with Supermodel, then we changed it up a bit to where we had Captain Rooney work twice. Solemn Cell Taker. It was like a demon. The face paint and the fishnet top he had on, and it hadn't got the same success, I would say. as a supermodel, but it was still good.
It was cool. It was like because Ray is a big guy, and he had that, like, it was a believable kind of gimmick because he was a big guy and all that face paint. It was kind of intimidating. Like, all the little kids were like, when he make his entrance, were scarpering back and sitting down by their mums all of a sudden, you know.
So, like with Ray, Captain Rooney gimmick a face, and then you do the Salem Soul Taker.
Yeah.
Then there was another chap who did 2 gimmicks. But then I was like, there's an idea here. I need less lads, one less car to travel. Let's work twice.
4 guys.
And it worked out. You can do a show of 4 lads. And this is how we go up and down the West Coast, like. And that's how, long story short, gee, what man, people are probably trying to understand us talking fast. But you end up holding these 2 belts.
Yeah.
The International Heavyweight Championship and the Zero Gravity. So we went on the road with the new crew of trainees and the few guys we had already. There was nobody at your caliber as a face to carry the secondary title. And the good heel at the time, supermodel, I had him with you. So I put you as a double champion. So you held both belts for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
Until you could train up a guy to come in secondary as a face and take the Zero Gravity. That was a lad called Skater Boy Jeeves, we called him. You trained him in, and then you held both belts 3 years, 1 month with the heavyweight, continuous, and a year and a half with the Zero Gravity.
Yeah.
And you held this for another 5-6 months after Ian, supermodel, won the heavyweight championship, and you dropped it to Skater Boy Jeeves. And then at that stage, it opened up again, and then we started doing more around the East Coast, Midlands, and we brought up that crew to where we had the 2 belts, were the stronger crew underneath.
Yeah.
Compared to that year or so you gone around with the both belts, because we hadn't got that strong of a crew.
Absolutely, yeah. That I mean, you could see why, from your perspective, that would make complete sense, and it does. You don't want to put this, which is important, on people.
Secondary belt.
Yeah, too early. I mean, like, so when it came to this one, the Zero Gravity title, which is like a really cool belt, like, I think I prefer this one over this one in terms of the shape, and I really like
it. Made in Australia.
I think it's so unique looking. But the right time, whenever we put the belt on, I thought, like, we had a good match, and there's a lot of false finishes in that.
Too many false finishes. I feel the crowd with too many false finishes.
But we loved it. It was cool, and I think he made a really good, likable baby face Zero Gravity guy.
See, this is the thing. Like, not all of them of that crew, but like, some of them would listen to what you wanted. And again, for me personally, I think some people, they believe their hype in wrestling. And I know that one of the guys before you that had that heavyweight championship, the guys that held both championships, without the height or the shape or the ability or the talent, would let it go to the heads. They would think, I beat Chris Daniels because I'm a better wrestler, or I beat this, when it's not. The promoter paid them and asked them to make you look good, whereas you never had that attitude. You know, and unfortunately that's the downfall of some guys. Once they win a championship, particularly one like yours, your heavyweight championship, it goes to the head, and you got that's it. I got this because I'm the best, technically the best all-rounder and the best whatever, but you're not the toughest guy in the dressing room, you know?
Yeah. It's having a belt or a title is like you're being entrusted, but with the promoters trusting you and putting you in a responsible position, like that an audience will look at you and genuinely believe that you are the champion, that you're the real article, but it's the promoter that's putting that belt on you. You're not actually going out and legitimately beating someone up.
Can you remember as well, not Orig Williams, Peter Nolte's last tour? So Orig Williams used to have huge houses back in the day. He wore the sport days and packed around the place. But you were part of that last ever tour with Peter Nolte and Orig's family.
Yeah. And
I thought it was a shame to see, because I know I went to a couple of the shows and they were empty. Venues were empty. But you showed how much Irish wrestling had changed. Wrestling in general in this country. The audience wasn't there anymore. Yeah. And one way I thought was, I liked the fact that you were able to work some of those last shows. Ian was as well. And, he had got good crews. But I always remember seeing that. That was the last show's day. I think it was 2011 maybe, was it?
Yeah, roughly. It was around that, yeah.
I remember seeing that as a sign at the time as well, like, because they promoted very well and advertised well. For you, at the end, when I put you out as a heel, putting over the likes of Captain Rooney, who I know was going to put the belt on next, it meant something.
Yeah.
And you were, even though you were leaving, you wanted to go, move on, you still had that respect to put over.
Oh, yeah.
Whoever I asked you to put over. And one of them was like, the Zero Gravity was Jeebus around the circuit.
Yeah.
And then after that, I moved you on to Captain Rooney around the circuit. I'm sure Captain Rooney would agree you were the far superior athlete and character as such, but he still shone. As good as he was with the audience, you still put him over more.
I definitely think at that time as well, though, he definitely stepped up his game and was...
No, he did, but he wasn't... What I'm trying to explain is he wasn't the athlete.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
And that's something the audience, I'm sure, would say that. Like, we talked about the splits earlier on, your competitiveness, the physique, the whole... And while he had the big... He was a big, burly guy. By him beating you around that loop a couple of times and then getting the belt, they saw him as good as Mandrake winning the belt, you know?
Yeah.
Because I feel that after Supermodel, that quality wasn't there anymore. That multi-layered, you know? The Captain Rooney gimmick didn't need the belt. It was a great character.
It was always super over.
The amount of pictures and Polaroids and merchandise he sold, kids loved them. Chicken Chance. But he didn't need a belt. So from that level, from Captain Rooney onwards, it glided along. It was more of a national title. So it was defended mainly against Irish guys within Ireland, Northern Ireland. The days of the likes of yourself or Ian taking it abroad, particularly yourself and those international challengers, was then gone. So the Irish whip belt became an international belt, more of a national championship, but it still had that prestige, and it still does to this day. Like, prior COVID, hasn't been defended since COVID-19 started in early 2020. But you brought a lot of, you as in Mandrake, the wrestler, when you later became the Irish Devil Mandrake, as the heel.
Bad guy.
But, myself and Irish whip wrestling, the lads who came afterwards holding that belt really owe that to you, like, what you brought to that.
Cool to say. But like I said, that's earlier. It's kind of the nature of the business, isn't it? If you go up, you'll come down. You can't stay up there forever, like, you know. But it's I just looked at like a change of departments. So like I was on this part of the job for a little while up here. I just got moved down to this department. You know, and it was like I have a different job here. And it's like if you move to a different department, you're like, oh, I'm reinvigorated. This is exciting again. Not that up there wasn't exciting, but when you're up there for like so long, sometimes it's cool to come down and, you know, see different people and be on a different part of the card and things like that. I enjoyed it. To me, like the least enjoyable times of like the physical performance of wrestling is when you start, because you're so bloody nervous all the time and it's so stressful. But towards the end, like I found, you know, years and years in and with lots of experience, you really started enjoying it, and it didn't matter like if you were in the opening match or wherever. I think like there is some people that have a problem with where they are in the card or who they're losing it to, but that's all down to the ego, and pride comes before a fall.
As well, as I'm sure you know, on an indie level, and particularly in the territory, when you're not getting huge houses, thousands of people to show, you don't get paid depending on the house. It's a set fee, and that's a promoter, that's the gamble. You take your set fee and the whole lot. Like, so regardless of where you are in the card, it would be ego over anything else, because you're still getting paid on mid card realistically as you're at the top. And just before I move on, so when Captain Rooney was there, his new opponent was the Galway Grappler.
Yeah.
Now again, the Galway Grappler was a great character, great heel. Kids hate him. They would buy his picture just to rip it up. Great. Brilliant. But again, Captain Rooney, Galway Grappler, I would put it there with feuds, you and the Supermodel, that I brought all over the country, Drew McIntyre and Sheamus. But they obviously weren't they didn't look like Sheamus and Drew. They didn't have the same in-ring talent, athleticism as you and Supermodel, but they brought something different and they worked with it. And again, it went all around the country. It didn't have the same longevity as past feuds, but I thought it was a great feud. Just to a superhero and an evil clown, basically, is what it was.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it was brilliant. And Galway Grappler eventually got a shot at the belt at the end. He was the last champion to have it. Again, it was nice that he got it, but I think at that stage, the athlete, the competitive sportsman, just that part of it wasn't there. But still, it was still defended by the end all over the country. And one guy who got a run with the belt was afterwards, and it came too late for him, was Ballymun Bruiser.
Yeah.
So Bruiser started out like...
Bruiser was back in my day.
So looking back, and again, I don't want to, put anyone down, but I should have actually put the belt on Bruiser. Maybe not before you, but would it be nice to have that feud? I think you and Bruiser would have been a good feud.
There was I remember before the feud with Vic, or the little thing I had with Vic, I had a couple of matches with Bruiser, last man standing ones and stuff.
It was
really good.
It was
a
bit around the circus. So I remember putting Ballymun Bruiser with Tracy Smothers as the heels against you and Kid Cash, for example, or then swap balls around or different whatever, or even with Doug. So it was building him up. Like I said earlier, it was about building up guys underneath to a certain level and then get working on the next guys and swap them around until you don't trick the audience, but the audience feel comfortable with a Ballymun Bruiser or a Manson or a Mandrake or a Rooney, because they're used to seeing how strong they are, like, as characters. And that's what it was with Bruiser. But Bruiser, I would have liked to give him a run with that strap. I should have actually put that belt on him over Vic, and that's not to put Vic down. I should have actually done that with Bruiser looking back. I think it would have been stronger as a heel for you to win that off than it was off Vic Viper. But characters. Irish Whip was always about characters.
Yep. Absolutely.
And it was great to have yourself in there as that athlete against athletes that looked like Doug Basham and your Kevin Thorne. It was believable, like.
Yeah.
And a lot of these guys were somewhat bigger, and you were overcoming them all,
Yeah, and it shows you. No, I'm not the tallest, but I'm about average height, but I was in good shape back then. But those guys still look like it's like Land of the Giants.
It's fresh off TV and media. And everyone went on about media. Radio. People are quite easy to put a picture of you in the paper. And we were coming to a town, giving a press release when you see a picture of you with the belt on you.
I kind of really regret not keeping all those press clippings and everything from back in the day.
Something else we used to, like I said, at one stage it was all the sold-on shows, and you're a huge Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
And I remember you used to do Toys for Big Boys.
Yep.
And one year there was a Star Wars team to where we were.
Yeah.
And you got to...
There was
dream true.
Yeah, oh my word. So I'm the biggest Star Wars fan in the world, and I in particularly love the character of Darth Maul. And we were at the Toys for Big Boys convention. We were wrestling at that. And there was a guy who was dressed up as Darth Maul and a guy dressed up as Qui-Gon Jinn from The Phantom Menace. And I got to be in a tag team with Darth Maul against the Supermodel and Qui-Gon Jinn, or Captain Rooney and Qui-Gon Jinn.
It was 6 man. It was you.
Yeah.
It was a tag match, but we just threw the two guys in for that little bit of entertainment.
They were doing their own thing outside. They would do a little lightsaber battle, a choreographed thing. So we came up with the idea, we got them in for the hot tag, and they just did their little bit and got them out, and we do everything around them. It'd be like a dream come true. So I think that when Ariana gets bigger, I'll be like, if you only remember one thing about your dad, just remember he was Darth Maul's tag team partner. It was again, one of those things, one of those experiences you could only get in professional wrestling.
And I do have a rough copy that I'll pop up. And again, there's a Suicide Fighter YouTube channel. Some of these clips go up, you can check it out. But a lot of those matches at the Toys for Big Boys, there's so much competition. There's army trucks, sports cars. But most of those matches were packed.
Yep.
Packed, squeezed into the areas that we were. And that says a lot for you lads as entertainers, enticing these people over.
Yeah, it was like, I remember there was somewhere, it wasn't Toys for Big Boys, it was like some convention, or was that?
The National Convention Centre.
The National Convention. Yeah, I remember like, obviously there was lots going on, but and every now and then, every hour there was a wrestling match or something. But I remember like the crowds that would build around the ring towards the wrestling match, and you'd have to like get someone to come to the ring with you to move people out of the way. Unbelievable atmosphere.
And small little areas, like I said, some places you might fit 300 in, 500 in, but people couldn't get in. So when the next match would come, say an hour later, people would get there early.
Yeah, and they're all waiting around the ring.
So you have these fresh people come in to get there early and selling them the merch.
I was going to say, it's like, he's on the merch.
And it was packed, and it was absolutely brilliant. But as in telling that story, that we can entice people to come back. So rather than keep going around the towns, you're doing your street team. Now with the digital age, it's obviously a lot easier to market. But at those shows, realistically, you're enticing so many hundred people back for each match. It could be thousands of people at this convention. Fresh new audience over the day, X amount of matches. You might do 2 little mini shows. Sell, like, you know. Mm-hmm. But for you as well, I know you had a lot of fun. All the lads looked up to you and respected you. But you showed a lot of loyalty to not only Irish Whip and the lads, but to myself. I know there's promoters that would come along and offer you substantial, particular guys, substantial more money than I would. And you never took it. And I remember telling you, look, you can go ahead and do it. I know Irish Whip, you ran so many shows, it kind of defeated the purpose of working everywhere else because you had to come to Irish Whip shows to see these characters. But at that stage, this guy was just, and we went to business in the end, he lost a lot of money, but he was offering you a lot of money and he said you could take it.
Yeah, there was a lot of money.
But you didn't. So I was always, thanks for that, like, I appreciate that. Like, I didn't stop you at that stage, I said you could.
Well, loyalty always works both ways, and there was a lot of faith put in me, you know, with Irish Whip, and gave me a lot of opportunities to go and see things and do things that maybe I wouldn't have experienced in my life. So it was kind of a no-brainer for me in that sense, because I always felt, and I still do feel very like grateful for what Irish Whip gave to me. And, you know, even now, I don't know how many years it's been since I last wrestled. It's been a long old time now, but like, you know, around where I live and stuff, people will still be like, you know, when are you going to wrestle again? You know, they still remember, you know.
And if you remember, like, just a time with the signs where things were changing, you always have to cut your cloth to suit your budget and what works best. We used to do the town hall, city hall down in Newry.
Yeah.
And again, I think we sold it one time, a few hundred people, close the second time. And then you could see, as time went on, just the
work a smaller venue.
Yeah, work a smaller venue. And I remember we were doing its sister venue, and that was small. It was about 180. And then we used to do up the road in Warren Point.
Yeah.
Packed in the beginning. Yeah. I have some videos of that as well, actually.
Amazing. Yeah.
Parades used to take place in the parades.
Yeah.
There's a fair few parades all over the country.
Simon was a great man for, there's a parade going on, getting your wrestling gear in the freezing cold in Ireland and march down the road to promote the show.
You get more people.
Hand out the flyers as you go.
I know Irish Whip did lose a bit with Soul in 2013 when you moved on. When you moved on, you went on to a very good life, and I encourage anybody, always put your happiness first or your real life first, because wrestling can't it? It could just overtake you to where you're obsessed, addicted to it almost.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's I don't know, I think, like I said, wrestling kicked me a few times. Kind of, I guess it's like it breaks your heart a wee bit too much, and then eventually, you know, it's like your girlfriend breaks your heart for a little while and you fall in love, but you find this new thing over here and you're like, ooh, want to go over there. And so I just found other avenues. I think, you know, enthusiasm, having something to be enthusiastic about in life is really, really important. And I was always so enthusiastic about wrestling, but then, you know, things happened with it, and then I just found somewhere else that made me super enthusiastic. So I still always had that zest,
Like,
you know.
for me, you're talking about your car there, you know, going around, you had your rinky-dink car, then it broke, you couldn't afford to fix it.
No.
So you're going around, couldn't afford to fix it. I remember you were eating cans of tuna and rice crackers.
That's right.
But now here you are, you have a beautiful taekwondo gym here, home, a family.
Yeah.
Actually, you have two homes. You have two homes that you own. So I mean, it just for people, it just goes to show you. Like, I mean, accept stage in your life where you're like, look, this is working out. We need to move on. Like,
yeah, and you move on, and life, you don't feel like a failure or anything. Life is still super brilliant, and you know, I have other avenues outside of those things. I love music. I like my little thing now is I have a little band going. I say a little band. I don't want to
what do you call it?
Talk Devilsome. So I kind of took the Mandrake character.
Any links?
Yes, you can. You can find us on YouTube if you search Devilsome Band. Instagram Devilsome Band. Devilsome Band. But basically, you know, what you'll see is Mandrake, the big like contact lenses, sweaty, muscular guy, except now I'm on stage with bass guitar singing about demons and devils and all those fun stuff, you know. I just kind of moved over a little bit, and I'm very lucky. The guy I'm in the band with, Joe McGuigan, he's like a really experienced musician and stuff, and he's really helped me, and he's helped bring things on. And we've done a music video and a demo, and we're working on an EP now, which will hopefully have out, you know, towards the end of the year, and we'll get some live shows going. And it's just like there's a part of me that's always very practical, and it's like, you know, my physical training and my martial art and my businesses that I look after, but there's always a creative side, I think, and like wrestling was a really great place for that, but you know, now it's going other places.
Yeah, for you obviously, I feel bad that you never got that opportunity back in the day to have your tryout earlier and be given the opportunity to potentially be a part of the farm system. I do think if NXT UK came around 2018, I think, wasn't it? 2018. I really think you could have been an addition to that had it not been for bad timing.
Yeah,
so
I think so.
You never really got that opportunity. But like we just explained here, even if that opportunity came now, which it's obviously not because you haven't been wrestling for years or trend or you're not at the scene anymore.
Yeah.
But your family and what you have now is more important. And what you have now is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. I'm very lucky to have everything I have and had the opportunities around me and good people around me.
We're going to finish up now, but before we do you want to plug your gym?
Yes. I run Nuri Is Taekwondo Center for Excellence. So we house classes from students as young as 3-year-olds. We have a curriculum which deals with very young children. It's a special curriculum to teach them Taekwondo, martial arts, life skills, things like that. And then we also have teens and adults classes, and a family class where families can come together and train. I also run some personal training from the gym as well, both myself and my wife. And we have boot camps which run regularly as well. So for people who are fond of exercise classes and things, we have classes which run in the evening times, and we have classes which run in the morning time.
So Garrett, Mandrake, the Irish Devil, the Black Heart Warrior, I just want to thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam.
For not only the interview today, but also your time as the Irish Whip Wrestling International Heavyweight Champion, my favourite ever champion, and from a business point of view and from a trade point of view. And I'm sure there's many fans out there that would agree with that.
And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to get out and perform in front of people and help develop me as a wrestler. And also thank you to like anyone who ever cheered for me or came to a show, because without the fans we don't have a show.
Captain Rooney would have a bit of a special. Me and you would be arguing sometimes, and Captain Rooney would be always the one in the middle.
yeah. But that's the thing. Like, I mean, it's never always like plain sailing when in the wrestling industry.
Exactly.
You know,
and that's the whole point of these interviews.
I think we stayed on the same page most of the time.
We did.
Yeah.
Just near the end when we explained that already near the end of your career, but the whole point of Chronicles, Irish World Chronicles, like I said, it's not only talk about Irish World, but it's the realisms of the world we live in and how that evolves in wrestling. People in wrestling live in a bubble, and it's not really a bubble like the bubbles you were saying.
It's not a positive bubble sometimes.
Life has to continue afterwards. I know I've continued on in life. I've started a second life nearly, new partner, family, home and all that. I know the likes of Captain Rooney, the Ballymun Bruiser. There are people who have progressed past wrestling in the real world, and it's great to say that. It really is.
It's not the end of the world. I think sometimes when you're in that wrestling mindset, you assume there's nothing else outside of this. But there's a whole wonderful, wonderful world out there, and you can be anything that you want to be. You've just got to get after it.
And folks, thank you for watching Chronicles.